Yes.
All right, we are back live now with David Hall, who's our attorney on the Budget Adjustment Act memo. And we posted a version. David submitted a draft. I also submitted some draft language this weekend for everybody's review. And so it's 3:05 now. I would love us to come to a conclusion on this memo by 4:30 so that David can just finish the compilation and send it off to the House Appropriations Committee. So if we can, what I'd like to be able to do is review what David wrote. I think we agreed as we left on Friday by consensus on a lot of things, and then there was the language that I submitted was just to discuss adding money to to our memorandum, and what what consensus will we come to as a committee on our suggestions and whether or not we feel comfortable adding a number or just saying that we want to add funds to it. So I think I provided for both of those in the language I sent this weekend. So if we can bring up that bill, you behind David. And can we go to the 2020 version? The 2020 vision.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
There you go.
All right, let's stop. Let's just see what we have here on the draft. I think David just popped things in. Again, when I submitted this to you all, I think I said it's a draft. You have editing that you want to see done. If there's language that you find wrong, please mention it. And I tried to not write anything that I didn't hear in our conversations. So we want to go paragraph by paragraph and just check off what we think is satisfactory throughout this letter. That would probably be the best way to work on it. So any thoughts on paragraphs, or on any of the paragraphs that we see up on the screen?
Cool. Tell me if I have to move up or down for anybody.
Is the first housing at the end of the first sentence purposefully capitalized? And if it is, can you explain when to capitalize and when not to?
It wasn't purposefully.
Okay.
Can we scroll?
Yes, we can.
Okay, let's bring down the beginning of that one. Yeah, right there.
Thank you. Typos too.
Yep.
Second line, I think we also note that this proposal, okay, is the use general fund dollars. We need of.
Well, yes, of. And also note that this proposal uses, it should be uses.
Or uses.
You see that, David? We have a hard copy. Again, GF is general fund. And 3 sets of letters at the end of coronavirus relief fund, emergency something, 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 or the ARPA, which is those are the federal funds. Those are the federal fund programs that were sent to us between 2020 and 2022. So this next paragraph on the top of page 2, when I bracket something like that, this is just a writing thing. When I bracket something, I consider it like super draft. It's just like, this is an opinion that we're having, and I just want to make sure that if we include this language, that we reach a consensus in some form for this. The first, the substantial verbiage was without a number, and then obviously the next sentence, I just said if we wanted to add a number of dollars as a suggestion. Again, as I said Friday, I understand that many of us. $50 million may be like picking a number out of air. It's something that people have testified to. But if people are uncomfortable with that, then perhaps we don't offer a number. We just offer the desire to fund with money that may be available. Because certainly the Appropriations Committee is hearing a number. But I do want to just appreciate that. I want everybody to feel comfortable with what they're recommending, and not comfortable recommending a number, then we'll keep talking. Yeah, Representative Parsons.
The only thing for me that I preferably, but I don't agree, that's perfectly fine. I would just remove. Well, I don't even know if we really need to remove, but I'll say remove strongly and not put a dollar number. Just that we recommend that they find money for.
To consider using?
Yeah.
Representative
Yeah.
Chestnut.
So in a proofreading kind of way, the paragraph in brackets is a single sentence. I would break that into 2, and I have 2 sentences, and I have a suggestion for that.
Sure, throw it out. I can't believe it's one sentence, but giving it that it's me writing, I can't believe
I
it.
mean, it's well done.
What's that?
Well done to get it in 1 sentence.
No. No.
Checked a lot of boxes.
It's like
I know.
okay, it's like me talking into a
Editing,
microphone in
Robin.
one breath.
Yeah, so line 4, I would put a period after rehabilitating housing units, period. Strike primarily, but not solely, to alleviate the homelessness we are experiencing. Strike that. And then, continue to strike, as well as to, and put something like this allocation will also fund the service organizations, including but not limited to community action agencies. I think it's just more readable that way. But as far as a number, putting a dollar number there, my concern in leaving it blank is that, are we suggesting $2 million or are we suggesting 50 million? And we're not suggesting, but just, what's the scope?
All right, so first to the grammar or whatever. Does Robin's suggestion make sense? I mean, I think having more sentences rather than less is always a good thing. So David, did you catch that? Do you need him to restate it?
I'm just not sure how the second sentence is supposed to open. I can make something up or you can tell me.
Well, I made something up, so you're welcome to as well. But what I had said was, this allocation will also fund, and then I'm picking it up with the service organizations, including but not limited to.
So it's rehabilitating housing units, period. And then delete almost the next full sentence. And then starting it again with
This allocation will also fund
the service organization.
service organizations.
I just have a question. So if you don't put a number, and again, obviously this is many of our first times doing this, do they ever, like, is there a back and forth? Do they then come back? No, this is the memo and do they come back and say?
This is the memo. This is the memo again. They've taken testimony from the same folks that we've taken testimony from. So they've heard the $50 million
Okay.
figure. So whether we put it in or not, yes, if we put it in, it might be stronger. But we're providing them with some background, which is important. And I think if they get from the other witnesses that they've heard from, but again, I'm leaving this conversation up to the committee and, I just want to make sure, first and foremost, that the text is right and that the thinking behind it is right. But again, as I said, I appreciate the fact that picking a number may feel a little,
Right, I was just curious if they do like a.
they won't do a back and forth with us. I mean, they may come in and say, can you be more clear?
Right, that's
They
kind of,
may do that, but
Okay.
they're not going to do that as a norm.
okay, thank you.
My preference would be that if we did decide to put a number out there, that we split it between the two programs. Because they may themselves weight one or the other.
Which programs? The GA program and
VHIP.
No, I meant the rental relief and the two relief programs that are in that paragraph. So,
the rehabilitating housing units and
no, I'm sorry.
Do you need me to go up?
Okay. Okay, down. Right, basically the VRAP or ERAP
we
allocation.
don't have the ERAP allocation.
I know, but we're replacing it with a request for funds. And I'm just saying to split out what those
Are
allocations
you talking about the
were
$3
big.
million for the bridges? So just to be clear, the federal dollars were FEMA
Yeah,
dollars, and now the administration is proposing $3 million is the bridge program out of the general fund.
Yep.
So that's,
Would that be the general assistance?
yes, that's what
Yes.
you were meeting on, right?
Yes.
And so let's wait till we get there because it's part of the,
okay,
let's get down at least to that part before we come back for the dollars conversation. But so outside of, okay, so we now added, and we changed the sentence on that top thing. Joe is asking that we strike strongly just to have consider saving, consider using. Are we okay with that paragraph right now? All right, so let's go to find the paragraph starting finally.
Quick question.
This is where you're starting to get to, Elizabeth.
I don't have this version. Where is this version?
This version was just posted on our website this afternoon. This is what David has put together.
Okay.
So,
Under Tom's name as the witness.
Oh, okay,
Under, yeah, there's 3 exhibits under today, there's a third one under Tom's name.
thank you. I think I might need to. hit
Yes, this is
refresh.
what I was talking about.
Yeah. So that whole first several paragraph page and change is just kind of the intro, and it just takes us to where we left off on Friday. Again, that paragraph clearly doesn't state a figure, it just states that we think the program should continue. All right, so section 1, let's scroll down a little bit. This goes to subsection 26. It's not within our jurisdiction. We take no position in subdivision 31. This is, so Saudi, this is where you've been in contact with Human Services Committee. Do you have an update?
I do. And so we've been back and forth, with HC Human Services to get, data and numbers, et cetera. And so the agreement, everyone is in agreement that we should, allocate more funds. The original ask was just to highlight and center families and children. However, in doing so, we leave out older adults and people with disabilities. And so we came back with more numbers, well, they came back with more numbers. And so as it stands right now, the committee recommends, 8,312,850 million that be directed to, DCF's economic fund to maintain participants with families and older adults. The third that's gonna increase when the request to support folks with disabilities gets added. So for right now, that's where it stands. And then an additional 2 million for services to connect, because remember the third stool is one of the 3 legs is services. And so in order to support the folks utilizing the funds, make sure the services are in place, and so 2 million would go towards to hire and retain the coordinated care teams to continue the wraparound supports needed for participants in hotel motel housing.
Okay.
Yes?
So that's what Human Services is proposing in their memorandum. Our response is simply, we're deferring to that committee concerning the amount of the appropriation.
Okay.
That's sufficient for this committee. We didn't take any testimony, but that's why we had Saudi contact, be the liaison on the committee. So I'm uncomfortable in using the numbers that they're using, but I support what they're asking for. I would that this is the memo would be saying I support what they're asking for. Any thoughts on that? Yeah, Joe.
So this says we support the initial ask, but we're deferring, or we're supporting
No, we support, I guess,
Human Services ask.
I think what's meant is that we support the I was about to say the concept of the appropriation of additional funds, but that's not right either. So, we can change that to supports appropriating additional general fund support for the important program, as opposed to saying we support the $3 million.
Yes, I would, support the programming to keep individuals housed, if you wanna put the time frame, because there is a time frame in there, the extension. Because it's supposed to end, it's scheduled to end in March. So I think the original scheduled timeline was through July, which would allow hopefully more time for planning. But we know that
Yeah.
there's no housing for me to go to, so we're trying to figure that out. Just buying time here.
So any thoughts from the committee on, should we change that first sentence of the first phrase to be the committee supports appropriating additional general fund support? Or are we okay with where it is?
If we don't put a number on it, are we issuing a carte blanche check?
I don't think so, because we're deferring to this,
To the human services,
Recommendations.
yeah.
which is much more specific.
I kind of read it, I'm sorry, I kind of read it as we're supportive of the administration's ask, but if Human Services has another number, we'll support their expertise.
Oh, is that how you read it? So if that's how it reads, then, oh, I'm sorry, I don't raise my hand, I'm so sorry.
You're good?
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'll
I'm trying to do the thing.
I'll let you know if you were out of line.
Okay, so if, because I don't think it should read that way because we don't want the 3 million. Well, not that we don't want it, but I feel like it needs more. So I feel it maybe the language needs to reflect.
We feel the administration's ask is insufficient. and
Yes.
We support the number promoted by Human Services.
Yes, that would feel better for me. But if that's how it read.
Yeah, Representative Parsons?
I would just say that considering, this is a Human Services Committee thing, I don't know if the governor's recommend was correct or if is this correct? I guess I'm okay with the way it's written, that's all I'm saying. To the
And we heard testimony on this. We heard testimony on the $3 million.
Right.
And I don't think we opposed
No,
the idea that it has to happen to replace the federal funds that have been depleted.
Right.
So again, does this sentence get there?
It works for me.
I think it's fine.
All right, subdivision then 32, which is the VHIP money. I think we were in total agreement with that. Section 4, not in our jurisdiction. Section 6, that was about the positions in the, it was just adding the language back into the act that had been inadvertently let out. We had talked that we supported that technical correction. Same with section 24. That technical correction was it was more specificity with where the funds were coming from rather than just saying federal COVID relief funds. It was a specific program. Section 26 was the CTE construction change. And I believe we supported that without comment. So is that's all we have, right, David?
Yes.
So committee, let's scroll back to this section, these sections, or these paragraphs right here. So we've already suggested 2 changes in the paragraph with however, that starts however. We of course could delete the brackets. And what I heard from who I've heard from, and I haven't heard anything different, is that that not suggesting a number right now is the best way to go, is to follow just the text and not put a number in.
I don't know how that lands. I don't know I don't know like how that translates, like how,
To the appropriations committee?
yes, so does,
I think my experience is that it will translate fine. because I know that they've received the testimony on it. We're supporting the programming that is in here. But we also know, I mean, I personally, I feel uncomfortable. Yes, I would follow what VHCB is asking for, but that's me. And I know that they'll be giving it away responsibly, but I also know that you may not know that. And so the committee, because it's received as much testimony in housing as it has, I don't think needs our seal of approval on an actual number as much as it would need it on the policy itself, which is what we're talking about, or the goal of any funding would be. Does that make sense for everybody? So David, I would say cut that line that says option. Okay, anything further? Does anybody have any questions on Representative Labor?
Throughout the document, mentioned dollars and 5 million. Should we be spelling out?
Is there a protocol?
Well, numbers are usually written out 1 through 9, and then 10 is optional, and the numbers above that are written out numerically. That's the convention. But, you know, in narrative writing, like a memo, you could see someone writing 5 million. But because it's a budget bill, typically they do use the dollar figures and the numeric values. I'm stuck on this second paragraph, the however paragraph. So you're just generally saying as a committee that in the Budget Adjustment Act process, you would like appropriations to consider making just additional appropriations to VHCB and other housing organizations to continue the work on housing. Is that right?
Is it right? Yes.
Okay.
Because the BA, the version of the memo that we received has nothing in it about these housing organizations, which, so that we're not responding to section 1, section 2, section 3. We're just adding our editorial thoughts.
Fair enough. So the way I think the second sentence of that paragraph will read is it would say, this allocation will also fund the service organizations, including community action agencies and the organizations that are on the ground helping Vermonters who are experiencing homelessness. Is that sufficient? Is that?
I think it's, how did you start that?
This allocation will also fund.
Okay, so we don't have a this.
Right. And it's a nebulous, I mean, there is no allocation. There's a general recommendation.
An extra allocation is what we're asking. We're asking
Okay.
for an extra allocation.
And allocation would fund.
An allocation, right? We wouldn't even have to say extra because we don't have, there is none.
And are you taking out the including but not limited to?
We could, that's just legalese.
Oh, okay, no, I just wanted.
So in our statutes, including means including but not limited to. So we generally don't include that phrase, but not limited to, just because it's a defined term.
Yeah.
In the Title I chapter that governs the interpretation of our statutes.
That's just me showing my age.
So the sense of that second sentence is basically, you know, these additional funds, this additional funding that you're contemplating that would flow through the BAA process to these organizations would also support the community action agencies and other organizations on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure I have the flavor of it right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, if you need to smith it, please do.
Okay. right, shall I go revise this and bring it back?
Just before David goes, anything else for David right now? And, because we'll be, 15 minutes, half an hour. Do you need to do it through editing? Does it need to go through editing?
I mean, technically, everything's supposed to go through editing. To be honest with you, editing is days behind on things, so I don't
So we
know,
have proofreaders here,
right? So I don't know if you wanna
so 15, 20.
dive into that abyss and
No, we don't.
see the next
No, we
time you can
don't.
catch a breath.
No, we'd be, it gives, if you can get this to us by before 4,
Yeah, no problem. I'll just go.
and the sooner we're done